Anna was driving back from a weekend trip with her friends. It was a long, lonely stretch of highway, and she still had a few hours before she reached home. The night was quiet, and the road was deserted, until she noticed a car in her rearview mirror that seemed to be following her a little too closely. Anna had been on the road for about an hour. The highway stretched out endlessly in front of her, with nothing but flat land and the occasional tree breaking up the monotony. It was late, past midnight, and there weren't many other cars out. It had been a long weekend with friends, and she was looking forward to getting home, but the drive felt endless. She had the radio on, playing softly in the background, but her attention kept drifting to the rear view mirror. About 10 minutes ago, a pair of headlights had appeared behind her, growing steadily closer. At first, she thought nothing of it, just another car heading home late at night, like her. But the car didn't pass her. It stayed behind her, maintaining a steady distance, always in the same lane. At first, Anna brushed it off as a coincidence. Maybe the driver was just keeping pace with her. But after a few more miles, her unease began to grow. The car wasn't just behind her, it was tailgating her, and the road was completely empty. She tapped her brakes lightly, hoping the car would take the hint and either slow down or pass her. But it didn't. Instead, it seemed to get even closer, the headlights practically blinding her in the rearview mirror. Anna's pulse quickened. She glanced at the speedometer and realized she was driving slightly over the speed limit. She slowed down a bit more, but the car matched her speed perfectly, still tailing her. The highway was deserted. No other cars, no gas stations, no rest stops. Just miles of dark road stretching out ahead of her. Anna considered pulling over, but the idea of stopping on a dark, empty highway with this car behind her made her stomach churn. She sped up again, hoping to put some distance between them. The car followed, matching her speed once more. Her heart began to race. This didn't feel like coincidence anymore. Whoever was driving that car was doing it on purpose. Anna's mind raced with possibilities. Was it someone just messing with her? A drunk driver? Or something worse? She tried to stay calm, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. She checked the time. It was nearly 2 a.m. There had to be a town or gas station up ahead where she could pull off and get away from this car. A few minutes later, she saw it, a small rundown gas station off the side of the road. Relief washed over her as she signaled to exit, hoping the car behind her would keep going. But as she pulled off the highway, the car followed her, turning into the gas station parking lot just a few seconds after she did. Anna's heart pounded in her chest. She pulled up to the pump and watched in her mirror as the car parked a few spaces away. The headlights turned off, but no one got out. The driver just sat there, the outline of their figure barely visible through the darkened windows. Her instincts screamed at her to leave, but she was trapped. She couldn't get back on the highway without driving past the car. After a long moment, Anna grabbed her phone and pretended to make a call. She spoke loudly, as if talking to someone nearby, hoping that whoever was in the car would hear her and leave. But nothing happened. She sat there for what felt like an eternity, her breath shallow, her heart racing. Finally, after what felt like forever, the car's engine revved to life. The headlights flicked on, and the car slowly backed out of the parking spot. Anna watched, her stomach in knots, as the car pulled out of the corner of the gas station and back onto the highway. It took her a few minutes to calm down enough to get back on the road, but when she did, she kept her eyes glued to the rearview mirror. She didn't see the car again that night, but the fear that it might return stayed with her until she finally made it home, exhausted but safe. Kyle had been driving late into the night after visiting family out of state. He wasn't familiar with the back roads, but his GPS told him that this route would save him some time. As he turned onto an isolated road, he noticed a strange, flickering light in the distance. It had been a long day, and Kyle was ready to get home. His family reunion had gone on longer than expected, and now he found himself driving through unfamiliar roads late at night. His GPS showed a shortcut that would take him through some remote back roads, shaving off an hour from his trip, so he decided to take it. At first, everything seemed fine. The road was narrow, but it was paved and smooth. Trees lined both sides, their branches forming a canopy that made the night feel even darker. Kyle kept the radio on low, the soft hum of music keeping him company as he drove through the quiet, deserted road. After about 20 minutes, the road began to feel more isolated. The trees became denser, and the road twisted and turned with sharp, unexpected curves. There were no streetlights, no houses, just the endless stretch of trees. Then he saw it. A faint flickering light in the distance, just off the road. At first, Kyle thought it might be a farmhouse or a car parked further ahead, but as he got closer, he realized something was off. The light wasn't steady. It flickered erratically, like a flame, but there was no source for it. It hovered just beyond the tree line, far enough from the road that it couldn't have been a car. Kyle slowed down, his eyes fixed on the strange light. It seemed to pulse, growing brighter and then dimming, almost like it was beckoning him toward it. He shook his head, trying to focus on the road ahead. It was probably just a reflection from something, maybe a distant fire or a strange trick of the headlights. But as he drove past, he couldn't help but glance at the light one more time. It was still there, flickering in the darkness, almost like it was following him. Kyle's grip tightened on the steering wheel as he sped up, eager to put distance between himself and whatever that was. But a few minutes later, he saw another flickering light. This time, it was closer to the road, just ahead of him. His stomach churned. There was no way he had looped back to the same spot. He had been driving straight for miles. The light flickered again, casting strange shadows across the trees. Kyle's heart raced. This wasn't normal. He pressed his foot down on the accelerator, speeding past the light without daring to look directly at it. But as he rounded the next bend, he saw another one. This time, the light was on the road itself, right in his path. Kyle slammed on the brakes, his car skidding slightly as he came to a stop. The light hovered there, just a few feet in front of him, flickering like a dying flame. His breath caught in his throat as he stared at the light. It was close now, and he could see that it wasn't a fire or a reflection. It was something else, something unnatural. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the light went out. Kyle sat there in stunned silence, his heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't explain what had happened, but the road ahead was now pitch black, and the eerie, flickering light was gone. He didn't wait to find out if it would come back. Slamming his foot on the gas, Kyle sped down the road, not looking back until he reached a main highway hours later. He never took that shortcut again, and to this day, he can't shake the memory of the flickering lights that seemed to follow him through the darkness. Lauren was driving late at night after a party, trying to make her way home through the quiet back roads. Her phone's GPS lost signal, so she decided to follow her instincts and take a familiar turnoff. But the road she thought she knew so well led her somewhere much more unsettling. It was past 1 a.m. when Lauren left her friend's party, the winding back roads her only path home. She had driven these roads dozens of times before, but that night, the familiar route felt different. Her phone's GPS had lost signal about 10 minutes ago, leaving her to rely on memory. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds and the dark trees pressed in on either side of the road. There were no other cars, no lights, just her headlights cutting through the darkness. After driving for a few miles, she spotted a turnoff ahead. It was an old, narrow road she had taken many times before. It was a shortcut that would take her directly home, avoiding the longer main highway. Without hesitation, she turned onto the road. But as soon as she did, something felt off. The road was narrower than she remembered, and the trees seemed to crowd in even closer. The familiar landmarks she usually passed were nowhere to be seen. She kept driving, hoping her memory was just playing tricks on her, but the road only grew darker and more unfamiliar. Lauren's grip tightened on the wheel as a sense of unease crept over her. The road twisted and turned in ways it never had before, and the trees seemed to loom closer with every mile. She checked her phone again, still no signal. Her stomach churned as she realized she had no idea where she was. The road seemed to go on forever, with no end in sight. And then, up ahead, she saw something strange. A car was parked on the side of the road, its headlights off, its windows dark. It looked abandoned, but as she passed by, she thought she saw movement inside, just a brief flicker of something in the shadows. Her heart raced. She sped up, her mind racing with fear. The road twisted again, and she found herself driving even deeper into the unfamiliar woods. After what felt like an eternity, Lauren saw another turnoff ahead. This one was marked by an old, faded sign that she couldn't read. Desperate to get off the narrow road, she took the turn, hoping it would lead her back to the highway. But instead, the road narrowed even more, until it was barely wide enough for her car. The trees closed in, their branches scraping against her windows as she drove. The road twisted and turned, leading her deeper into the woods. Finally, she reached a dead end. Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized she was completely lost. She put the car in reverse, trying to backtrack, but the road behind her had changed. The turnoff she had just taken was gone, replaced by a thick wall of trees. Panic set in. She had no way out, no phone signal, and the dark, oppressive woods surrounded her. Lauren sat in her car, her hands shaking, unsure of what to do. The woods were silent, too silent. The only sound was the thumping of her own heartbeat in her ears. And then, from somewhere deep in the trees, she heard it. A soft, rustling sound. It grew louder, closer, as if something, or someone, was moving through the woods toward her. Without thinking, she threw the car into drive and floored it, crashing through the narrow path, the branches scraping against her windows as she sped back the way she had come. She didn't stop until she reached the main road, her heart racing, her mind reeling. She never found that turnoff again. The next time she tried to take it, it was as if it had never existed.
Thanks for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed the journey. If you loved the twists and turns, don't forget to hit the like button and share the stories with your friends. Make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss out on our next thrilling tale, because there's always a new mystery or adventure just around the corner. Until next time, keep imagining, keep exploring, and remember, nothing is ever quite what it seems.